dad's silent revenge.
When my nephew died, I thought the worst had already happened. Then his best friend called me 4 days after we scattered the ashes. "Mr. Mitchell," he said, voice shaking like a leaf in a thunderstorm, "I found a USB drive hidden in Howard's workshop. You need to see what's on it. And please don't tell Patricia anything. I think she knows I have it." Those words stopped my heart cold. What could Howard possibly have hidden from his own wife? I'm Gerald Mitchell, 61 years old, retired RCMP detective with 30 years of service under my belt. Howard wasn't technically my son, but I raised him from age 12 after his parents, my younger brother and his wife, died in a head-on collision with a drunk driver on Highway 35. For 23 years, he was the closest thing to a son I'd ever have. My wife Margaret and I never had kids of our own, so Howard became everything to us. When I drove to Austin that evening and watched those files open on Lenny's computer screen, my entire body went numb. The boy I raised had known he was in danger, and he'd left me everything I needed to prove it. The memorial service was held at a chapel overlooking Lady Bird Lake, one of those modern places with floor-to-ceiling windows that made you feel like you were sitting inside a fishbowl. The December sun streamed through the glass, creating patterns on the polished wooden floor that shifted every few minutes as clouds drifted by. My wife, Margaret, had passed 5 years earlier from pancreatic cancer, and now Howard was gone at 35. A brain aneurysm, they said. Collapsed during his morning workout in the basement gym of the house he'd bought just 18 months earlier. His wife, Patricia, found him when she came home from her yoga class at that fancy studio downtown, where membership costs more than most people make in a month. She stood at the front of the chapel now, accepting condolences with perfect grace. Black Chanel dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension, tasteful pearl necklace. Just enough tears to seem devastated, but not enough to ruin the makeup that must have taken an hour to apply. She'd always been beautiful, Patricia. The kind of beautiful that made you forget to look deeper. With blonde hair that caught light like spun gold and green eyes that seemed to promise things she had no intention of delivering. I'd never fully trusted her. Call it cop instinct or just plain suspicion. But Howard loved her with the kind of devotion that made him blind to everything else. A man approached her during the service, maybe 38, tall and lean with the kind of build that screamed personal trainer. He wore a charcoal suit that fit too well for a funeral guest, expensive fabric that moved with him like it had been tailored specifically for his frame. They exchanged words I couldn't hear over the soft organ music playing something classical and depressing. He touched her arm briefly, just below the elbow, and she smiled. Not a grief smile, not the kind of expression you'd expect from a widow at her husband's funeral. Something else, something familiar and intimate between them. I watched him leave through the side door without speaking to anyone else, slipping out like he'd never been there at all. Patricia caught my eye from across the room and walked over, taking my hands in hers. Her skin was soft and warm, moisturized with something that smelled like expensive flowers. "Uncle Jerry," she said, using the nickname I'd always tolerated but never liked. "Why don't you stay at our place tonight? I can't bear the thought of you driving back to your hotel alone, not after today." I'd already booked a room at the Driscoll downtown, one of those historic hotels where the walls probably held more secrets than a confessional booth. "I'll be fine," I said, keeping my voice gentle but firm, already paid for the night. She squeezed my hands, and I noticed her wedding ring catching the afternoon light. 3 carats of diamond that Howard had saved for months to afford, working extra jobs and skipping meals. "You shouldn't be alone right now, Uncle Jerry. We're family. We need to stick together through this." The word family felt wrong coming from her mouth, like a foreign language she'd never quite mastered. But I nodded and said I'd think about it, watching her glide away to greet more mourners with the same practiced sympathy she'd shown me. The truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about the phone call I'd received from Howard 11 days before he died. It was nearly midnight when my phone rang, which was unusual because Howard was disciplined about everything: sleep, exercise, work schedules, even when he called his old uncle. He lived his life like he was following a manual written by someone who'd figured out all the answers. "Uncle Jerry," he'd said, and his voice carried something I'd never heard before. "I need to ask you something important. If anything ever happened to me, would you promise to look after things? Make sure everything was handled right?" I'd laughed it off the way you do when someone young starts talking about mortality. "You're 35 years old, Howard. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're healthier than men half your age. Just promise me." There was something in his voice that made the hair on my arms stand up. Fear, maybe, or resignation. The same tone I'd heard from witnesses who knew they were in over their heads but couldn't find a way out. "I promise," I said, settling back into my recliner and reaching for the remote to turn down the volume on the late-night news. "But Howard, what's going on? Is everything okay with the business, with Patricia?" "I can't talk about it now," he said, and I could hear traffic in the background like he was calling from his car. "I'll explain everything when I see you at Christmas. We need to have a serious conversation." Christmas was 3 weeks away. Howard never made it. The hotel room felt like a cell after the funeral. All beige walls and generic furniture that could have been in any city in America. I sat by the window watching the Austin skyline light up as evening fell, remembering the boy who used to help me fix motorcycles in the garage behind our house in Victoria. The kid who called every Sunday evening without fail, who sent Margaret flowers on her birthday even after she died, who'd been afraid of something and hadn't told me what. My phone buzzed against the nightstand, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Lenny Foster, Howard's business partner. I need to speak with you urgently. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? Please don't mention this to Patricia. Lenny Foster." I remembered Howard mentioning him dozens of times over the past 3 years. They'd started an environmental engineering consulting firm together, something about soil testing and water quality assessments for construction projects. Howard always spoke highly of him, said Lenny was the only person he'd ever met who worked harder than he did. I texted back asking where and when, my detective instincts already starting to kick in after years of retirement. We met at a coffee shop in East Austin the next morning, one of those places with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture that tries too hard to look authentic. The smell of espresso and bacon filled the air, mixing with the sound of hipsters typing on laptops and discussing whatever hipsters discuss these days. I'd chosen a table in the back corner where we could talk without being overheard. Old habits from 3 decades of conducting interviews with witnesses who didn't want to be seen talking to cops. Lenny Foster was a tall guy with kind eyes and the calloused hands of someone who actually worked for a living instead of just talking about it. But those hands wouldn't stop moving, constantly adjusting his coffee cup, his napkin, his phone, like he couldn't sit still long enough to have a normal conversation. He wore a flannel shirt and work boots that had seen better days. The kind of clothes Howard preferred too, practical stuff that could handle getting dirty. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Mitchell," he said, glancing around the coffee shop like he expected Patricia to walk in at any moment. "Call me Jerry," I said, settling into my chair and studying his face. "You sounded pretty worked up on that text message." He nodded but didn't use my name, which told me he was either very polite or very scared. "I found something 2 days ago," he said, lowering his voice until I had to lean forward to hear him over the coffee grinder. "Howard gave me a key to his workshop last year, said I could use his tools whenever I needed them for side projects. After the service, I went there too." He paused, staring into his coffee like it might provide answers. "I don't know. Feel close to him, I suppose." The place still smelled like the motor oil he used on that old Harley. I remembered that motorcycle, a 1985 Sportster that Howard had restored from a pile of rust and dreams, spending every weekend for 2 years turning it into something beautiful. He'd wanted to ride it to Sturgis someday, said we'd make it a road trip when I got too old to argue about safety gear. Lenny pulled a small USB drive from his shirt pocket, holding it like it contained nuclear launch codes. This was hidden inside a hollowed-out book on his shelf. To Kill a Mockingbird, his favorite novel, you know how he was always talking about justice and doing the right thing. I stared at the little black device, no bigger than my thumb but potentially containing enough information to turn my world upside down. "What's on it?" His face darkened like storm clouds gathering over the Texas Hill Country. "Everything. Bank statements, emails, photographs, recordings." Howard documented it all, going back almost 2 years. He opened his laptop, an old Dell that had seen better days but still worked, and inserted the drive. I watched folders appear on the screen, each one labeled with dates and cryptic names that meant nothing to me but apparently meant everything to Howard. As Lenny clicked through them, my hands began to shake like I was 80 years old instead of 61. The bank statements showed systematic transfers from their joint checking and savings accounts. Small amounts at first, maybe $500 or $1,000 that could have been legitimate expenses. But they grew larger and more frequent over time, disguised as business expenses, charitable donations, payments to vendors that probably didn't exist. The total exceeded $400,000 money that had flowed like water from accounts Howard had trusted his wife to help manage. All of it went to a single destination, an account under the name Victor Coleman. Who the hell is Victor Coleman? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Lenny clicked to another folder labeled Photos and pulled up an image that made my stomach drop. The man from the funeral, the one with the expensive suit and the familiar smile. Tall, lean, with the kind of build that came from spending hours in the gym and probably charging other people to do the same. He was standing next to a red convertible that cost more than most people's houses, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Her personal trainer, Lenny said, his voice heavy with disgust. They've been having an affair for almost 4 years, apparently. Howard hired a private investigator last year when he started getting suspicious. The photographs were like a knife to the heart. Patricia and Victor at restaurants I recognized from downtown Austin. Expensive places where a dinner for two could run $200 without breaking a sweat. At hotels in San Antonio and Dallas, walking hand in hand on South Padre Island, with the kind of relaxed intimacy that comes from not having to hide anymore. The timestamps showed dates when Howard was traveling for work, attending conferences, or visiting job sites, trusting his wife to be home waiting for him. But that wasn't the worst of it, not by a long shot. Lenny opened a document folder labeled Insurance and clicked on a file dated just 2 weeks before Howard's death. It was a letter he'd written, typed on his home computer, and saved to the drive like a message in a bottle. Uncle Jerry, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and I need you to know the truth. I discovered Patricia's affair 8 months ago. I hired a private investigator, documented everything, and consulted with a divorce lawyer downtown. I was planning to confront her after the holidays, file for divorce, and protect what assets I could. I'd already moved most of our savings to an account she doesn't know about, but 3 weeks ago, Patricia found out I knew. I don't know how. Maybe she saw something on my computer, or maybe Victor told her I'd been asking questions. She's been different since then, watching me all the time, asking strange questions about my health, my exercise routine, the supplements I take. She's been pushing me to increase my life insurance, keeps talking about how anything can happen and we should be prepared for the worst. Last week, she suggested I add a rider for accidental death, doubling the payout. I changed the beneficiary on my policy to you 2 days ago. She doesn't know yet, but she will when she tries to claim the money. I had to stop reading and take a deep breath. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm, too crowded, too normal for the words I was seeing on that screen. Uncle Jerry, I might be paranoid. I hope to God I am. But if something happens to me that seems natural or accidental, please don't accept it at face value. Please look deeper. You spent 30 years investigating cases for the RCMP. You know how to find the truth better than anyone I've ever met. She's been acting strange lately. Bringing me protein shakes before my workouts, insisting I drink them even when I say I'm not thirsty. She bought new vitamins last month, expensive stuff from some health food store in San Marcos, said they were better for my heart. But when I looked up the brand online, I couldn't find any information about the company. I'm scared, Uncle Jerry. I never thought I'd write those words, but there it is. I'm scared of my own wife. The woman I pledged my life to, who promised to love me in sickness and health, who sleeps next to me every night. How did it come to this? I love you more than I can say. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it myself, the way you always taught me. Be strong, be smart, be prepared, but some problems are too big for one person, even when that person learned from the best. If you're reading this, then my fears came true. Please don't let her get away with it. Please don't let her take everything we built and run off with that bastard to live happily ever after on my life insurance money. Your nephew, Howard P.S. I hid copies of everything in the workshop because I knew you'd find them eventually. You always said the truth has a way of surfacing. No matter how deep people try to bury it, I had to read the letter 4 times before the words really sank in. My boy, my strong, capable, proud boy, had been afraid for his life and hadn't told me until it was too late. The kid who used to climb trees without fear, who rode his motorcycle through thunderstorms, who faced down angry contractors twice his size when they tried to cut corners on environmental reports. He'd been scared of the woman he married. Lenny was crying silently across from me, tears rolling down his cheeks and dripping into his untouched coffee. I should have noticed something was wrong, he said, his voice barely audible over the morning rush of caffeine addicts. He seemed stressed the last few months, but I thought it was just work pressure. We had 3 big contracts running at the same time, deadlines every week. I never imagined. I looked at the date on Howard's letter, November 20th. He died December 1st, 11 days. She'd given him 11 days to live after he changed that beneficiary. I need copies of everything, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. And I need you to act like this conversation never happened. Can you do that? Lenny nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago, I said, thinking about all the times I'd bitten my tongue when Patricia made comments about Howard working too much, spending too much time with his boring uncle, not appreciating what he had. I'm going to protect my nephew. I drove to the Austin Police Department that afternoon with the USB drive and every document Lenny had copied for me. The building was one of those modern concrete structures that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never committed a crime and couldn't imagine why anyone would want to. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects, and the smell of industrial coffee mixed with disinfectant created an atmosphere that would make anyone confess just to get out. They directed me to Detective Beverly Turner, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. Her office was small and cluttered, with case files stacked on every available surface and a coffee mug that looked like it hadn't been washed since the Clinton administration. She listened patiently as I laid out everything, occasionally taking notes but never interrupting. Mr. Mitchell, she said carefully when I finished, setting down her pen and folding her hands on the desk. I understand your concerns, and I can see you've put a lot of thought into this. But your nephew's death was examined thoroughly by our best people. The medical examiner found no signs of trauma, no indication of foul play. Brain aneurysms can occur suddenly, even in healthy individuals. My nephew was healthy as a horse, I said, keeping my voice level despite the frustration building in my chest. He ran marathons, lifted weights 5 days a week, had a complete physical 6 months ago with results that would make a 25-year-old jealous. No family history of aneurysms on either side going back 3 generations. That does sometimes happen, unfortunately. These things can develop without warning, regardless of age or fitness level. I spread the bank statements across her desk like a poker player showing his hand. Detective Turner, my nephew, wrote a letter saying he feared for his life. His wife was stealing from him, having an affair, and pushing him to increase his insurance coverage. He died 11 days after writing that letter, after changing the beneficiary to cut her out. She looked at the documents again, this time with more attention to detail. This shows financial misconduct and infidelity. That's certainly significant, and we could pursue charges for fraud, but it doesn't prove murder. Without evidence of how someone might have caused a brain aneurysm. She spread her hands apologetically. I left the station understanding that no one would help me. Not yet, not without more evidence than bank statements and a scared man's letter. But I'd spent 30 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The last 15 in forensic investigation. I'd analyzed crime scenes from Vancouver to Halifax, testified in dozens of trials, helped put away murderers who thought they'd committed the perfect crime. If anyone could find the truth about what happened to Howard, it was me. I returned to Patricia's house that evening, accepted her offer to stay in the guest room, and began playing a role I'd never imagined, the grieving, oblivious uncle who suspected nothing. Over the next 6 weeks, I became a student of her routine, watching and learning like I was tracking a serial killer. She left the house every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon, claiming grief counseling or visits with friends who were helping her through this difficult time. I followed her on the 3rd Wednesday. She drove to an upscale apartment complex near Zilker Park and entered Unit 412. Through the window, I could see her embracing Victor Coleman like they were celebrating something instead of mourning. They weren't even trying to be careful anymore. At night, while Patricia slept, I searched every inch of that house. Howard's home office had been cleaned out, his computer wiped, his files shredded. But killers always miss something, and Patricia wasn't as thorough as she believed. In the basement behind the water heater, tucked inside a plastic bag wrapped in duct tape, I found 2 prescription bottles. The labels had been removed, but one still contained residue that looked like crystalline powder. I collected a sample the way I'd been trained decades ago, maintaining chain of custody even though no court would ever accept evidence gathered this way. In Patricia's car, hidden under the owner's manual in the glove compartment, I found receipts from a pharmacy in San Marcos, over 50 miles away. The purchases were made in cash, but the dates aligned perfectly with the weeks before Howard's death. The items? Potassium chloride solution, medical grade, high concentration. My forensic training kicked in like muscle memory. Potassium chloride administered intravenously could cause cardiac arrest that might present as various natural causes, including complications that could trigger an aneurysm. If injected while the victim was sleeping or incapacitated, it would leave minimal trace evidence unless specifically tested for. Howard worked out in the basement every morning at 5:30 before Patricia was supposedly awake. What if she'd been awake all along, waiting for the right moment? I needed toxicology reports that went beyond the standard panel. As next of kin and executor of Howard's estate, I had legal authority to request additional testing. Some tissue samples had been preserved before cremation, stored in a private lab in Dallas that specialized in exactly this type of analysis. The results arrived 3 weeks later. Elevated potassium chloride levels inconsistent with natural occurrence. Microscopic evidence of an injection site in tissue near Howard's left arm. My nephew had been murdered, poisoned in his own home by a woman who'd promised to love and cherish him. I took everything back to Detective Turner. This time, she read each document with the intensity of someone who just realized they'd missed something important. When she reached the lab report, she looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much death but still believed in justice. Potassium chloride injection. This is definitive evidence of homicide. Yes, it is. Mr. Mitchell, I'm reopening this investigation immediately. Everything you've gathered will be entered as evidence. We need to coordinate with the DA's office, obtain proper warrants. Your nephew deserves justice done by the book. 2 weeks later, while Patricia chatted about selling the house and moving somewhere warm with Howard's money, police executed search warrants simultaneously at her home, Victor's apartment, and the pharmacy where she'd bought the poison. They found remaining potassium chloride hidden in Victor's closet, along with emails discussing the timeline and method. Patricia was arrested in her own driveway, handcuffed next to the rose bushes Howard had planted the spring before he died. Victor Coleman crumbled within days, accepting a plea deal in exchange for testimony against the woman who'd convinced him that murder was just another way to start fresh. He described how Patricia had approached him with the idea, how they'd researched methods for months, how she'd practiced injecting oranges until her technique was perfect. The trial was swift and brutal. Patricia's defense attorney tried painting Victor as the mastermind and her as a victim, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, photographs, emails, forensic proof, and Howard's letter read aloud by the prosecutor until half the jury was in tears. The verdict came after 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 25 years. She'd be 57 before she could even apply for release. Today, the Howard Barnes Foundation operates out of Austin, providing investigative resources to families who suspect their loved ones' deaths weren't accidents. We've helped 23 families in 3 years. 18 cases resulted in reopened investigations. 12 led to arrests and convictions. Patricia will spend decades in a cell, knowing the uncle she dismissed as a harmless old man was the one who brought her down. The money she killed for went to help others instead. Howard's legacy isn't how he died, but what his death accomplished: justice for the innocent, protection for the vulnerable, and the certain knowledge that love doesn't end at the grave. Every case we solve is a small victory, a promise kept, a nephew's memory honored. Family bonds forged in love become unbreakable chains of justice. When you truly love someone, you never stop protecting them, even from the grave. Evil may wear a beautiful face and speak sweet words, but truth has its own power, and a determined heart armed with experience will always find a way to expose the darkness hiding behind the smile.